In the spring of 1965, Lou Reed and John Cale entered what was most likely Cale's 56 Ludlow Street apartment and together recorded 10 of Reed's original compositions. They had been busking on the streets of Harlem and Manhattan since the two had met, less than a year earlier. The songs were recorded on a portable reel-to-reel recorder and were intended to serve as an inexpensive copyright.
If I can, 'cause you know it makes me feel that I'm a man. Wanna put the spike into. Sounds of Reed to me.
Reed, a guitarist, poet, and staff songwriter for Pickwick Records, and Cale, a Welsh avant-garde violist and multi-instrumentalist, had yet to officially form the Velvet Underground. That would happen over the coming months. But the roots of the Velvet Underground, a band whose influence on so much modern music to follow would be so wide-ranging as to be almost impossible to quantify, were planted in the songs Reed and Cale recorded that day.
Music and dirty more dead than alive. I'm waiting for the man.
54 years later, in February of 2019, obsessive music fan and record company owner Matt Sullivan was in New York with his colleague, Grant Olson.
And we got a call from a friend named Rob Santos, who worked with Lou Reed for a number of years, asking if we'd be interested in coming to Laurie Anderson's office to hear some unheard Lou recordings, which was like the call I've been dreaming of my entire life. Grant and I immediately headed over to listen to these recordings. When Lou passed away in 2013, Laurie Anderson donated Lou's archive to the New York Public Library, which included hundreds of live and studio recordings from the 1950s all the way till 2013. During the donation process, they discovered there was this envelope sitting in Lou's Sister Ray office in Manhattan. And it was a sealed envelope, and it had a 5-inch reel inside. I mean, once they opened it, I believe the first initial response was they might have thought it was recordings that had already been heard. So Jason Stern and Don Fleming took the tape to get transferred and realized it was the first ever recordings of a number of incredibly iconic songs that we now know, but no one knew then. So I'm Waiting for the Man, Pale Blue Eyes, Heroin, and a few compositions Lou never recorded in any other capacity.
This fall, these recordings will be released to the public for the first time on the record label Matt founded and co-owns, Light in the Attic. As a companion to the release, I sat down with Lou Reed archivists Jason Stern and Don Fleming to get their insights into how the tape was discovered and the songs recorded by Cale and Reed that day. I'm Tunde Adebimpe, and this is Light in the Attic's liner notes, presenting Words and Music, May 1965.
I guess we should sort of start with shortly before Lou died. I was working for him at Sister Ray Enterprises.
Here's Jason Stern, Lou Reed archivist.
Lou died in October of 2013, and after the initial, shock of it all, it was time to kind of figure out how do we deal with all the stuff. Laurie Anderson kept me on initially to start dealing with Lou's office and all of that, and it quickly turned into more of a search for what are we going to do with Lou's archives.
Words, music, Lou Reed.
Here's Don Fleming, Lou Reed archivist.
And we just started a process of going box by box and cataloging everything that was there.
Sometimes I feel so sad.
One of the last things we boxed up were the CDs that he had behind his desk on the wall. And they were, Velvet Underground, his own CDs. They were reference CDs of his work. We had never noticed that among them was a 5-inch tape box. Literally, I was picking them up off the shelf and putting them in a box and said, "What's this? Looks like a bootleg." That's when we saw what the tape was.
We recognized it right away. Once we pulled it out, it was like wrapped in plastic. It had Lou's Freeport, New York address on it on Long Island, covered in postmarks and notary stamps. As soon as we actually pulled it out, we knew exactly what we had in our hands.
I think Lou used a tape recorder as a tool from high school onward, and it was very empowering as a young musician to be able to make a recording and play it right back and listen to yourself. He really wanted to see what he sounded like. The 1965 tape is just one example of that, but it's one of the most important because it catches him when he really became a songwriter. And he first wanted to say, I've got this group of songs and I want to protect them. I want to send them to myself to copyright protect them. And that's what this was all about. That's why it was sealed and had the certified stamp on it. And every song he starts by saying, "Words and Music" by Lou Reed. And then he and John Cale do their folky version of, a bunch of songs that no one had ever heard before, plus several songs that became Velvet Underground classics.
I'm waiting for the man, words and music will read.
So I'm Waiting for the Man is the first song on the release. And of course, this is one that we knew right away what the song was, and it's essentially the same song. There's really no big changes. But the crazy thing about this version is John Cale is singing it with him and even takes one of the verses himself.
I'm waiting for the man. $26 in my hand.
This was the period of time when John and Lou were busking on street corners, singing folk songs. This had been talked about and written about, but no one had ever heard it. No one had ever heard what that could sound like. So suddenly it's like, well, this is it. This is exactly what they were doing.
Be your shoes and be your hat. He's never early, he's always late. I'll catch him next time. The nerves are good and bad, you always gotta wait.
As far as we know, as far as we found so far, these are the first versions of all of these songs ever put to tape. So here we are, first version ever of I'm Waiting for the Man. So that gets us off to a pretty good start.
I'm waiting for the man.
In the second verse of the song, Cale basically sort of speaks the response to the question of what this white boy is doing uptown. And he says, "Pardon me, sir, nothing could be furthest from my mind." In his, Welsh accent. I mean, it's just crazy.
Oh, pardon me, sir. Nothing could be further from my mind. I'm just waiting for a dear, dear friend of mine.
And literally, they were singing this at 125th Street and Broadway. That's one of the places they would bus. So I guess they were up there for other business and would sing a couple of songs.
Up to a brownstone, up 3 flights of stairs. Everybody's been to, but nobody cares.
It was also striking to me how well they seemed to know this, the way they were singing it. It wasn't like Lou had said, help me out, and here's the words. I think they had been doing the songs for a while already like this, on the streets, and that's why they seem as tight as they are. There is another track in a different room, it sounds different, where there's a woman with them, and they're just singing some of these songs more casually. They're just kind of running through them. And we do have one of those, the extra version of I'm Waiting for the Man, comes from that other recording that's on the tape.
He's never early, he's always late. First thing you learn is that you always gotta wait. I'm waiting for the man. Leave it there.
So then the next song had the title, Men of Good Fortune.
Men of Good Fortune, words and lyrics, Lou Reed.
And of course, we recognized the title, but we didn't recognize the song at all because it was a completely different song, completely different lyrics and music.
My dear mother told me an old maid I'd be. Unless men of good fortune came courting.
As soon as we heard it, we were like, well, this is completely not what we thought it would be. Another big surprise. It immediately felt like an 18th century British ballad. I mean, it had this just tone to it. We were almost sure at first that it was a child ballad. It was like something that had been covered. But after a lot of looking by us and other people, we came to realize there is no other version of this. And it's a song he came up with.
He really knew how to step into other styles because it was literally his job at Pickwick.
Jason Stern.
To bang out some sound-alikes or hop on whatever was trending and make a hit. Be like, oh, I want to write something in the style of a folk ballad. Boom, here's Men of Good Fortune. Sounds like it's from another era.
The man of good fortune who's come to see me.
We were waiting to hear if Heroin was on this tape and what it sounded like.
Heroin were words, music and lyrics, Lou Reed. I know just where I'm going.
The biggest difference in this one lyrically is just the way he starts it. He starts with, I know just where I'm going. And he changed that later to, I don't know just where I'm going.
You know, it makes me feel that I'm a man. When I put the spike into my vein, then you know that things aren't quite the same. When I'm rushing from my run, and I feel like Jesus' son. And I guess that I just don't know. And I guess that I just don't know.
You know, he said that everyone said Dylan was writing things that are real. So I wanted to write about things that were real. And he said it didn't really work out so well at the time, though, when I played it for people. As far as we know, again, this would be the earliest recorded version of the song. So you see that it's pretty well formed.
Yeah, so we're on Too Late.
Too Late, words and music, Lou Reed.
This had just a little more of like a doo-wop feel. It's a genre that influenced and shaped Lou's sensibility.
Too late, baby.
And thank God that I'm not aware. And thank you, God, that I just don't care. And I guess I just don't know.
It's too late, it's too late, oh, too late, much too late, oh, too late, too late, oh, too late, it's too late to be
Don Fleming.
And then after that, a very interesting song. It's called the Buttercup Song.
Buttercup Song, words and music, Lou Reed.
Sterling had talked about it in interviews. He said they recorded it later on and it was sent away as a demo tape to try to get a record deal. And this isn't the version that Sterling talked about.
It was pretty easy and quick to recognize this one because the one Sterling had described, he said the title was Buttercup Song, but the alternate title is Never Get Emotionally Involved with a Man, Woman, Beast, or a Child.
And that's the first line.
Never get emotionally involved with a man or woman, a beast or a child, with cobblestone streets or subway turnstiles, and by World War III you have developed style.
Mythical song in that people knew it existed, but no one knew what it sounded like.
It's the light bulb moment. Definitely you get chills and it's just like, oh my God, this is that song. And there's 6 full verses to the song. So it's not just, it wasn't a throwaway.
Never get emotionally involved with a man or woman, a beast or a child, with cobblestone streets or subway turnstiles, and by World War III you'll have developed style.
This one had one of the bigger mysteries that we had to solve. The words he's using here are they're not everyday speak. There's a verse here where he says, but he is a liar because he got hung up on an androgynous small buttercup. The next line is, of staminate and pistolet flowers did he. I happen to remember that stamen and pistil are like parts of a flower, and it made sense because he's talking about an androgynous buttercup.
He had just finished college. It was a course he took in school.
Get closer, Mike.
After that's a song called Walk Alone.
Walk Alone, words and music, Lou Reed.
Basic call and response kind of song.
When you walk, you know you're gonna walk alone, baby. When you talk, you know you're gonna talk alone, baby, all alone. You know you're gonna walk it alone, baby, all alone.
Pretty lighthearted. In fact, they joke a lot during the song, which again, I feel like this is one they were probably doing on street corners and just had down their routine, and Lou's interjecting little lines even in between the singing lines. So it's a pretty fun one.
You're gonna drop alone, baby, when you drop dead. When you drop dead, I swear to God you do it alone, all alone, all alone. You know you're gonna do it alone, baby, all alone. Flop.
A lot of harmonica, very Dylan-esque, like time for another harmonica break and do another verse chorus while he's blowing the harmonica. After that's another song that did end up on a Pickwick release called Buzz, Buzz, Buzz.
Buzz, buzz, buzz. Words, music, Lou Reed.
Very Chuck Berry, basic style.
I put a nickel and a dime in the telephone. I called my baby, it was busy. I felt, baby, she wasn't home. Don't you know it went buzz, buzz, buzz. Buzz, buzz all night long. It went buzz, buzz.
Buzz, Buzz, Buzz is another song that doesn't show up anywhere else.
I called the operator, I complained. She said that she hadn't seen no rain. I said I didn't want the weather bureau now. I didn't die nervous, I didn't know how. She said she didn't know just where she was at. I said, why'd you go buy yourself a fruit hat? You know Pale Blue Eyes. Words, music, Lou Reed.
Pale Blue Eyes was quite a surprise because it didn't even get recorded until the third album after John Cale had left the band. But here it is before they've even started as a band, and he and John are singing it together.
Sometimes he is so happy. Sometimes I feel so sad. Sometimes I feel so happy. But baby, you just...
It felt like the same song, but the words were different. It's the same chorus. It's the same, I think, first couple of lines. And then everything else is completely different.
Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes.
The second verse is, wake up in the morning, about 3:30.
Up in the morning, about 3:30.
I don't mind the darkness so much. It just makes me think about me. Makes me think about me.
Think about me. Makes me think about
That sounds like it should be in the song now, or that it even is, but it's not.
Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Not that I'm complaining, just soon see you dead.
For me, that's one of the most exciting things, to really just see, like, Lou as a songwriter. Some songs were done, and other songs he had to just keep working on them. He wasn't happy yet. It wasn't there for him.
Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes.
And then we go to Stockpile.
Stockpile. Words, music, Lou Reed.
3-chord, 12-bar blues, but just with a rock beat.
They went to my Uncle Joe. They went to see him back no more.
This one was also real tough to figure out the lyrics to. Oh yeah, it looks like we even had to put in like a, parentheses unintelligible on one of these.
Yes, it looks like I'm gonna work for a while. I guess I'm gonna have to go and join the stockpile. Guess I'm gonna have to go and join the stockpile.
It's his working class song, yeah. I'm going to have to work for a while. Guess I'm going to have to go and join the stockpile. Not even sure what that means, but...
Looks like I'm gonna have to work for a while. Whoa, I guess I'm gonna have to go and join the stockpile.
There are times where you can tell Lou is kind of just making it up as he's singing it. And he talks about that, and he does that a little bit. So I think this one was a case of that. And also it was very late in the tape. So I think it might have been like, oh, what else can I put on? What else have you got?
I guess I'm gonna have to go and join the stockpile. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to go and join the stockpile. Hey, mother, I guess I'm gonna have to go and join the stockpile.
It sounds like something that he might have been writing for Pickwick, but again, it's not one that came out. It's not one that we knew about through bootlegs or anything else. So it was another undiscovered Lou Reed song. And then that brings us to Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams.
Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams, words, music, Lou Reed.
Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams starts sounding a lot closer to Velvet Underground territory.
When that one hit, it was just like, what just happened? You know, suddenly we are listening to the Velvet Underground. This song had never come out in any kind of bootleg, or no one had heard Lou do it.
The song otherwise was only released not on a Velvet Underground album, but on a Nico album.
Yeah, it's on Chelsea Girl.
I was just all psyched that we got one with John singing lead on it.
Wrap your troubles in dreams. Send them all away. Put them in a bottle and across the sea they'll say.
The gap between, say, Men of Good Fortune and Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams in terms of tone, it's pretty massive.
Speak not of misfortune. Speak not of your woes. Just steel yourself for holy death.
A very jarring, mind-blowing thing to hear them doing this song.
If people are coming to this album expecting to hear things that sound like the Velvet Underground, they're not going to find it in a lot of cases, but they will on this song. This will scratch the itch for sure.
The tape was mailed in May of 1965. It was a progression through that whole summer. They were named other things, the Falling Spikes, and then the Warlocks. When they were busking, they were the Falling Spikes. This tape is the Falling Spikes, if anything. They weren't the Velvet Underground until December, and then it just all happened very quickly. Andy saw them by the end of December, and then everything changed.
Here's Matt Sullivan, owner and co-founder of Light in the Attic.
This is something really significant, and it's not just in the sense that it's significant for being a Lou fan or a Velvet fan, it's really significant in American music history and also just music in general. I mean, so much music we listen to would not exist without the roots that really is found in these recordings.
I know just where I'm going.
Thank you for listening. I'm Tunde Adebimpe, and this has been Light in the Attic's liner notes, words and music, May 1965. Visit lightintheattic.net and loureedarchive.org to pick up the release, Words and Music, May 1965. Available now on CD, LP, cassette, 8-track, and deluxe vinyl.
And I guess that I just don't know. And I guess that I just don't know.
Light in the Attic's liner notes is hosted by me, Tunde Adebimpe, and is a co-production of Light in the Attic, Dann Gallucci, and Ruinous Media.